Ethan Ward walked with firm steps down the mirrored corridor of the Ward Industries building, the tech giant that dominated much of the digital security market in the United States. At 48, he had amassed a fortune, influence, and a demeanor that intimidated even the most confident. Magazines called him the Silent Wolf for his ability to appear unfazed in any negotiation. Employees knew that his presence meant little time for mistakes, and no one dared cross his path without purpose. On the other side of town, in a modest neighborhood public school in Queens, a 12-year-old boy carefully packed his books into his backpack. Liam held the zipper cautiously so as not to draw attention. He was thin, with an attentive gaze, and carried a silence that he almost never broke. His mother, Emily Carter, noticed that lately he had become even more pensive, as if searching for courage for something he wouldn't say. She worked as a waitress in a modest cafe, supporting herself and her son alone since Liam's birth. The connection between these two worlds, the corporate elite and a life built on daily effort, was almost non-existent. Almost. There was something that united them, even if one of them pretended otherwise. Ethan had always known of Liam's existence. He'd known since the day Emily, years ago, appeared at his door with a baby in her arms, her face etched with uncertainty. He didn't let her finish her sentence. He simply said, "I have nothing to do with this." At the time, he was about to take over the company after his father's sudden death and didn't want any distractions. He didn't allow conversation, didn't ask for a test, didn't ask for an explanation. He just slammed the door. Emily never returned. Life went on, at least for him, not for her. She raised her son alone, without support, without apologies, without a word from the man who had been an essential part of that child's life. But now, something was about to change. During a particularly busy morning, Ethan was surprised by the director of his New York branch. A complex intrusion had been detected on the private servers. Nothing had been stolen yet, but the sophistication of the attack suggested in-depth knowledge of the company's systems. He called an urgent meeting with his cybersecurity team. Technicians, analysts, and engineers crowded around the large screen displaying lines of code in motion. "Who's doing this?" Ethan asked, his voice firm but without raising his voice. "We don't know yet, sir," the chief analyst replied, "but the pattern doesn't match the known groups. It's someone who knows the structure, perhaps someone who has specifically studied your work." The phrase bothered him. He had corporate enemies, but they all had teams sophisticated enough to attack in a different, more obvious, more direct way. This seemed too meticulous, almost artisanal. That same morning, Liam left school. He walked quickly, his backpack clutched in his hands. He was hiding something inside, something he had been preparing for 3 weeks. The dossier he had compiled himself. Research, documents, dates, everything about Ethan Ward, the man his mother said she didn't want to discuss. A man Liam had never met in person. But now, because of the discoveries he was making, he felt he needed to confront him. There was something about his family's origins that no one had ever told him, and Liam was determined to find out. Emily noticed the change. She tried to ask, but he always replied, "Nothing much, Mum, just school." It was a lie. Liam knew it was a lie, and he hated lying to her. But he instinctively felt he needed to resolve this before involving his mother, who already carried too much weight because of others. Meanwhile, Ethan remained enraged by the attack. He went into his office alone, tempted to reopen files he had sworn never to touch again. He revisited old decisions, old mistakes, and one of them had a name, Emily. Something told him that this attack, this timing, was no coincidence. At the same time, Liam took the subway toward downtown Manhattan. He sat in a corner, watching the buildings approach as the train moved forward. At each station, he mentally reviewed what he intended to say. He wasn't going to ask for money. He didn't want public recognition. He just wanted to understand why he had been denied, and why there was information about his background that seemed to hide something bigger than a powerful man's mistake. When he arrived at Ward Industries, he clutched the papers tightly in his backpack. The immense building intimidated him, but he took a deep breath. There was security, receptionists, turnstiles, but Liam had a plan. He didn't need to go inside the building. He just needed to get Ethan to come out to him. And he would achieve this in a way that few people in the world would be able to, by arousing the curiosity of a man who hates losing control. The boy approached the main counter. "I need to speak with Mr. Ethan Ward," she said without stuttering. The receptionist raised an eyebrow. "And you are?" He opened the folder. He revealed the dossier. Calmly, he placed a single sheet of paper on the counter. An old photograph. Ethan, years younger, next to Emily. "Say that's what it's about." The receptionist froze. She immediately called the executive floor, and while all this was happening, something invisible connected two worlds. The unknown hacker, the determined boy, and the millionaire who had always run from his own past. Ethan Ward stepped out of the elevator with a hard look that promised nothing but a storm. He didn't expect to see a boy waiting for him, and even less what that boy was about to reveal. The hall at Ward Industries seemed even larger when Liam first faced Ethan. The boy maintained a firm posture, though his hands were cold. It took the millionaire a few seconds to recognize him as just a boy, and not a threat. Even so, the presence of this unexpected visitor stirred something unsettling, almost familiar, which he tried to ignore. "Come with me." Ethan turned his back without waiting for a reply. He led the boy to a smaller meeting room, away from the main flow of employees. It was a modern space, lit by natural light, with glass walls that showcased the intense Manhattan traffic outside. Liam entered silently, observing every detail. The order, the luxury, the control, everything that had never existed in his simple home. Ethan crossed his arms and stood up. "So?" he asked. "What do you want?" Liam placed his backpack on the table. He opened it slowly, taking out papers, photos, and small notes, organized with surprising precision for someone his age. There was no trembling in his movements. "That's true," the boy replied. "That's all." The simplicity of the answer irritated Ethan. He was used to people wanting money, favors, influence, not truth. But the discomfort increased when Liam opened a blue folder and placed a printed copy of an old hospital record on the table. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" Ethan asked. Liam kept his gaze steady. "I do, and I know why you didn't want to see me when I was born." The sentence hit Ethan like an invisible blow. He took a step back, regaining his cold expression. "That's a mistake," he said, as if automatically triggering the same defense mechanism from years ago. "I'm not your father." Liam took a deep breath. It wasn't the first time he'd imagined hearing that. But now it was different. Now he had more pieces of the puzzle. "I didn't say you were," he replied. "But I know you know something about me. Something my mother never told you, and you never told anyone either." Ethan remained silent. For the first time in the conversation, he didn't have a ready answer. Meanwhile, Emily was working at the cafe in Queens, distracted by orders and hurried customers. She noticed her cell phone vibrating constantly, messages from Liam, which she hadn't yet read. A bad feeling began to grow, as if something was about to slip out of control, something she had tried to keep buried for 12 years. Emily always avoided any connection to her past with Ethan. Not because she was afraid of him, but because there was something in Liam's story that she herself could never fully explain to her son, something she always believed was better left unsaid. But now the silence seemed to be crumbling. In the meeting room, Ethan finally pulled up a chair and sat down across from the boy. "I don't know what your mother told you," he began, his voice lower. "But she always hated me. I don't know what she came here to do, but nothing she brings will change the truth." Liam tilted his head. "But you don't know what I've discovered." There was something different about the way he spoke, something that didn't sound like a resentful son. It sounded more like someone who had come across something unexpected and frightening. "Then tell me already," Ethan retorted. "What is the truth you think you know?" Liam opened the last page of the dossier. "I know someone came looking for me when I was born," the boy said. "A man who tried to take me from the hospital the day my mother was unconscious. The hospital didn't register it as a kidnapping because the security guard stopped it. But they noted an important detail about the man. He was wearing the same ring you're wearing." Ethan instinctively looked at his own hand, the silver ring bearing the Ward family crest, a piece that all the men in the lineage had worn since the 19th century. Something impossible to copy without the family's permission. But the shock wasn't just because of that detail. That was because Ethan knew exactly who might have tried something like that. And it wasn't him. An old, almost forgotten memory began to resurface. Whispered conversations between executives, an internal dispute over control of the company, and a brother who had disappeared years before, who had always believed that Ethan was destined to ruin the family. The silence between the two was broken only by the distant sound of traffic on the street. Liam continued, "I didn't come here to ask for recognition. I didn't come here to apologize. I came to understand why someone from your family tried to take me when I wasn't even a day old, and why my mother never really talked about it." Ethan's world, once so organized, was beginning to shift like tectonic plates about to break. "Do you have any idea how heavy this is?" Ethan whispered. "If I were afraid, I wouldn't have come," Liam replied. And at that moment, for the first time, Ethan realized something. The boy didn't look like Emily. In fact, he didn't look like anyone he knew, and that made everything even stranger. Something from the past, something buried, was about to emerge, and perhaps denial was no longer possible. The silence that hung in the room seemed too dense for such a large and modern space. Ethan moved the dossier a few centimeters away, as if the mere contact with those pages could burn him. He stared at Liam, searching for obvious signs of manipulation, lies, naivete, anything that would make it easier to dismantle that conversation. But there were none. The boy didn't tremble, didn't look away, didn't seek approval. He was there for something much deeper than childish whim. "You said you have more information," Ethan finally said. "I want to see everything." Liam nodded but didn't open his backpack. Instead, he crossed his arms. "Not until you tell me what you know about the man who tried to kidnap me." The demand left Ethan almost indignant. He was used to commanding rooms, dominating negotiations, setting the pace. He was used to absolute control, but now he was the one reacting, and the boy was dictating the rhythm. "I don't know who tried to take you," Ethan replied, his voice firm. "But I know who it could I tried. And if it's who I imagine, you're not chasing after the past. You're chasing real danger." Liam narrowed his eyes. "So tell me." Ethan leaned back in his chair, his expression visibly frustrated. "This is not simple." "Never," Liam retorted. "But if someone tried to kidnap me when I was a newborn, I have a right to know." The boy's intensity disarmed any attempt to escape. There was courage, but also urgency. And that made Ethan remember something important. The attack on the servers that morning. The intrusion had been too precise, too quick. It seemed more like a warning than a robbery. A warning from someone who knew your company inside out, or worse, someone who knew his family. Meanwhile, Emily hurried out of the cafe, changing her apron for a light jacket. She finally found a moment to pause and look at Liam's messages. The first few were ordinary, but the last one made her freeze. "I'm going to talk to him." The "he" was too obvious and too frightening. She tried to call. The phone rang and rang, but nothing. Her body seemed to react before her thoughts. She hailed a taxi and asked to go to Manhattan. "It's urgent, please." Her voice trembled with something deeper than fear, something akin to regret. At Ward Industries, Ethan had made a decision. He stood up, manually locked the office door, and adjusted the automatic blinds to darken the glass. It wasn't a subtle gesture. It was a declaration that the conversation was about to enter dangerous territory. "There's something you need to know," he said. "But first, I want to understand how you got this information." Liam shrugged. "I did some research." "Where did you do your research?" Ethan's insistence carried more weight now. "Creating a dossier like this requires access. It requires skills that aren't common for someone your age." The boy hesitated, and this small gesture immediately caught Ethan's attention. "Liam," his tone became more serious. "Did you mess with some system you shouldn't have?" The boy took a deep breath. "I searched for records, that's all, just that." For Ethan, that "just that" was exactly the kind of phrase someone says when they've done something too big to confess without fear. And then it clicked. The attack on the company, the unknown intruder, the boy's careful behavior. "It was you," Ethan said quietly, his voice a mixture of shock and clarity. "You hacked into my company's servers." Liam looked away for the first time. He didn't deny it, and that confirmed everything. Ethan ran a hand over his face, incredulous. "Do you have any idea what could have happened? I have one of the most secure systems in the country." "I didn't steal anything," Liam replied, his voice now more intense. "I was just looking for files that had information about me." "That doesn't matter," Ethan practically exploded. "You put yourself at risk. And you put your mother at risk, too." Her name hung in the air, creating a different kind of tension. Liam clenched his fists. "My mother has been in danger ever since the day you slammed the door in her face," he said firmly. "And you know it." Ethan felt the emotional blow before realizing it was true. He hadn't imagined that his mistakes could have spread so far over time. "Liam," he tried to contain his anger, for the first time not to maintain authority, but because he was beginning to see the boy as someone who needed to be protected. "The man who tried to take me," Liam continued, "was he family?" The question struck Ethan like a precise scalpel. He stared at the boy, searching for the best way to say what he had been trying to bury for a long time. "I think it was my brother, but that's impossible." "Why?" Ethan hesitated. "Because he has been dead for 12 years. Liam's heart raced. Emily had always avoided talking about that year, about the hospital, about anything related to his birth. Everything was starting to connect, and the connections were too disturbing to ignore. "If he's dead," Liam said, "then someone's lying, or someone's hiding the fact that he's still alive." Ethan approached the table, placing his hands firmly on it. "And if that's true, Liam, then nothing you've discovered so far comes close to what's really going on." The boy's face remained steady, but his eyes betrayed the tension of the moment. The conflict, previously purely emotional, had now transformed into something much bigger, something involving family secrets, hidden crimes, and a threat that seemed to be resurfacing from the past. Ethan finally understood that, whether he liked it or not, he was part of that story. And the boy he had denied for years was now the key to understanding everything. Ethan lingered for a few seconds, analyzing Liam as if trying to see beyond appearances, as if trying to identify features, shadows, any detail that might remind him of the Ward family or his missing brother. But nothing was obvious, and what wasn't obvious was precisely what made everything worse. "If someone has been trying to find you since the day you were born," Ethan finally said, "then it's no longer just your problem, or just your mother's. This involves dangerous people, and it involves my family much more than you can imagine." Liam pulled his backpack closer, as if seeking comfort in the object that held secrets. He seemed prepared to face anything, but the truth was that his mind was spinning at too fast a pace. Despite the courage he displayed, he was still a boy alone in a universe that was beginning to open up like a dark labyrinth. The door to the room suddenly opened. Ethan turned, ready to reprimand whoever had interrupted, but stopped when he saw Emily, breathless, blushing with worry, her eyes fixed on Liam. "Liam!" She ran to her son, cupping his face in her hands. "What are you doing here? Why didn't you answer my calls?" The boy lowered his head, feeling guilty, but he didn't back down. "I needed to come," he said. "I needed to know the truth." Emily glanced at Ethan, and in that instant an old tension, deeper than resentment, filled the room. They hadn't seen each other for over a decade, but the impact of their shared presence felt vivid, recent, almost palpable. "You had no right to speak to him," Emily said to Ethan, her voice firm, almost trembling with anger. "Not after what you did." "I didn't call him here," Ethan retorted, equally firm. "He came in alone, brought documents, brought information that shouldn't exist. And Emily, he also—" He hesitated. He didn't want to expose the boy, but Emily noticed. "What did he do?" she asked, looking at her son with growing concern. Liam took a deep breath. "I hacked into his company's system." Emily's expression fell, not from surprise, but from fear. "Liam, what did you do?" "What was needed," the boy replied. "I needed answers." "And you weren't going to tell me?" Emily stepped away from him for a moment, running a hand through her hair. Her breathing was rapid. She was afraid of legal trouble, but she had a greater fear, the fear of the past that was now returning with force. Ethan watched the interaction with growing discomfort. For the first time, he realized that Emily carried a kind of weight he had never tried to understand. Not just the weight of raising Liam alone, but the weight of having protected the boy from something that even he, Ethan, didn't know existed. "Emily," Ethan said, trying to remain calm, "Liam found records about a man who tried to take him from the hospital. Stop!" Emily raised her hand, trembling. "Don't talk about that in front of him." Her words confirmed everything Ethan needed to know. She knew. She always knew. And Liam realized that too. "Mom, why didn't you ever tell me?" Emily closed her eyes. Her whole body seemed to struggle between the instinct to protect and the instinct to finally release what had been hidden. "Because I wasn't sure," she replied, her voice breaking. "And because I was afraid that if I spoke you would come looking for me, afraid that someone else would still be searching, afraid of losing you." The confession, though fragile, held enough truth to shake the boy. He had suspected it, but hearing it was different. It was painful. "Emily," Ethan insisted, now with more urgency, "you need to tell me what you know. This is no longer a family matter. If my brother is involved, whether he's alive or not, it means something much bigger is going on." Emily turned to face him, and her eyes, previously only irritated, now showed something more complex: frustration, fear, and above all resentment over something unresolved. "Your brother," she began, "was the one who approached me when I was pregnant. He showed up unannounced, saying that Liam couldn't be born, that there would be consequences. I didn't understand anything. He seemed desperate, talking about inheritance, about blood, about some internal family dispute. I thought he was out of his mind. I refused to talk to him." Liam turned pale. "He tried to take me because—" "What? I was a risk?" Emily nodded slowly. "That's what he said. That you represented an unlikely risk, something he didn't explain clearly. After the attempt at the hospital, I never heard from him again. I was informed that he had died months later. I thought it was all over." Ethan stood there, barely able to process anything. "That doesn't make sense." He clenched his fists. "My brother was involved in internal disputes, but never. This can't be a coincidence." "No, it's not," Emily replied. "And I'm sure someone revived it now. That's why Liam was able to find so much information. That's why he was able to get into your system." Ethan's gaze narrowed. "Are you saying that someone I wanted, that he would find something?" Emily swallowed hard. "I'm saying we're not just dealing with memories. We're dealing with someone who knows exactly what they're doing. And they're messing with Liam on purpose." Silence returned, but now there were no more doubts. There was more than just a family conflict. There was an invisible hand pulling the ropes, and she was getting closer and closer. The office door slammed shut behind Ethan with a sharp click. The silence that settled in seemed too dense for such a large space. Liam stood in the center of the room while the millionaire walked to the glass bar, pouring himself a glass of water that he didn't even get to drink. "You said someone tried to take you from the hospital," Ethan began, his voice more controlled, but his eyes betraying the inner turmoil, "and that he was wearing this." He touched his own ring. Liam simply nodded. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to organize thoughts he had been avoiding for over a decade. "Before we continue," he said, turning around, "I need you to know that if all of this is true, we're not just talking about a family mistake. We're talking about something much bigger." The boy frowned, but maintained his composure. "I know. That's why I came." Ethan approached. "You don't understand. My family is obsessed with legacy, with control, with continuity." He spoke as if, for the first time, removing a mask he had worn his entire life. "And there are people among the wards who would do anything to shape the future of our name." Liam didn't look away. "But why me?" he asked in a low voice. "What do I have to do with your legacy?" That was the question Ethan dreaded. Flashback. 13 years ago, the hospital was silent. Ethan hurried down the corridors, clutching his cell phone with the news that had changed everything. His older brother, Alexander Ward, had disappeared again. He had disappeared before, but never for so long. Ethan was trying to distract himself from it all when he saw a strange commotion. Security guards blocking a man trying to enter the maternity ward. The man was covered by a hood, but the detail became clear when he raised his hand. The same ward ring, the same ancestral coat of arms, the same symbol that only direct members of the lineage carried. Ethan froze. The man fled seconds later, disappearing through the back of the hospital. Ethan never told anyone. Back in the present, Ethan stared at Liam with a mixture of guilt and fear. "The man who tried to take you," he said. "I think it was my brother." Liam took a few seconds to reply. "And where is he now?" Ethan ran his hand through his hair. "Nobody knows. He disappeared completely, even before the incident at the hospital. But," he hesitated, "some people in the company claim he keeps showing up in transactions, anonymous funds, shady connections, as if he's lurking in the shadows, pulling strings we can't trace." Liam processed this with surprising calm. "And why did he want me?" Silence returned. It was the question Ethan most feared answering, because he had a hypothesis, and it was terrible. "Before he disappeared, my brother talked about a new ward generation, someone who would inherit everything, a perfect successor. He said the lineage needed new blood." Ethan hesitated before continuing. "And then, months later, you were born." Liam paled slightly, but did not turn away. "So, you think he believed I was—" He couldn't finish. Ethan finished for him. "An heir. Perhaps the only one he would consider worthy of replacing the entire family." Liam took a deep breath. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but in an even more terrifying way. "But that doesn't make sense," the boy said. "My mother always said you were just a mistake from the past. She never talked about that man, never talked about inheritance, nothing like that." "Because Emily is afraid," Ethan replied. "She always has been, not of me, but of what my family might do to anything she touched." Liam looked out the window. The city seemed so distant, so indifferent to the weight of that conversation. "So she tried to protect me," he whispered, "from something I didn't even know existed." "She did more than you realize," Ethan added, "and I can assure you that whatever my brother wanted with you, she stopped him, but that doesn't mean he gave up." Liam turned his gaze to him. "Do you think he's still looking for me?" Ethan didn't answer immediately, because the truth, the one he never admitted, not even to himself, is that yes. "Liam," he said finally, "if my brother wants you back, he won't stop." A shiver ran through the boy from head to toe. Ethan stepped forward, as if finally making a decision he had been avoiding for years. "From now on, you're not alone." His voice was serious, firm, almost protective. "And what if Alexander really is after you?" He looked directly into Liam's eyes. "We'll face it together." And for the first time, Liam felt something new toward the man he had always imagined hating. Something that seemed dangerously close to trust. The elevator leading to the basement of Ward Industries was too quiet. Liam was next to Ethan, who was typing a sequence of codes into the internal panel, codes that no ordinary employee had access to. As they descended, the boy felt a growing pressure in his ears, as if something heavy was approaching. When the doors opened, the basement didn't look like a parking lot or warehouse, but rather a corporate bunker. Reinforced corridors, armored doors, cameras tracking every movement. "That's overkill for a company, don't you think?" Liam muttered. Ethan replied without looking away. "Not when your own brother becomes your worst enemy." The boy fell silent. He felt that the deeper he went into that world, the further he got from the normal life he had with his mother. The two entered a room equipped with screens, computers, and physical files. It was there that Ethan kept information that not even the company's board knew about. "Sit down," he asked. Liam obeyed. Ethan opened a digital safe embedded in the wall. He retrieved a black folder marked only with 2 letters, A.W. Alexander Ward. "I never wanted to open this up," Ethan confessed. "But now, you have a right to know." Before she could show anything, the lights flickered. 1, 2, 3. Suddenly all the lights went out, and the bunker was plunged into darkness. "This isn't normal," Ethan said immediately. A deep hum echoed as if generators were being pushed beyond their limit. The emergency panel lit up red. A line of text appeared. "Warning, system intrusion, critical level." Liam stood up instinctively. "Ethan, what's going on?" The millionaire ran to a side table and pulled out a drawer. "He's here," he murmured. "He found us." Before Liam could ask who, a metallic noise echoed from the basement, as if a gigantic gate was being forced open. Boom! The ground shook. Ethan grabbed Liam's arm. "Come with me, now!" They ran down the narrow corridor. The lights flickered like lamps about to explode. The sound of destruction drew closer. Liam could feel every heartbeat hammering in his ears. Would he really do that? Liam asked as they ran. Break into his company, just like that? Ethan replied between breaths he would do much worse. They reached the reinforced security door. Ethan placed his hand on the biometric panel, but the system was locked. Access denied, system corrupted. He slammed his hand against the wall. Drugs! Liam looked around, trying to find another way out. It was a metal maze. And now, before Ethan could answer, a screen in the hallway flickered and lit up on its own. The image appeared in black and white, distorted, as if from an old camera. A hooded man, his face hidden in the shadows. But there was something unmistakable about his hand. The Ward ring. "Hey, brother," said the metallic voice. "Have you finally decided to accept me back into the family?" Ethan paled. "Alexander." The figure tilted its head. "And you must be Liam. So, shorter than I expected. But that's okay. We both know that greatness isn't measured by age." Liam felt a synchronous chill run down his spine. "Why did you look for me when I was born?" the boy asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Silence. Then the man laughed. "Because you shouldn't be with her." The voice grew lower, more dangerous. "Nor with him. You belong to me." Liam took a step back. Ethan stepped forward. "If you touch him, I swear that—" Ethan, always so predictable." The figure shook its head. "You never understood. He's not just a boy, he's the key." "The key to what?" Ethan shouted. Static needles cut across the screen for a second. When the image returned, the man was closer, as if he himself had leaned towards the camera. "From the fall of the wards," he whispered, and the broadcast ended. 1 second later, boom! The main basement door was ripped off its hinges. Ethan pulled Liam behind him. "Stay behind me, but where are we going?" "We will survive." Footsteps echoed in the hallway, heavy, precise, multiple. Alexander was not alone, and at that moment Liam understood. The truth he sought was far greater than his origin. He had not been rejected by Ethan. He had been marked by something that goes back to the Ward bloodline itself. And now the man who tried to steal him at birth was finally back, and coming straight to him. The room trembled with each new explosion. Liam felt his body stiffen, but his mind, surprisingly, was sharper than ever. Perhaps it was fear. Perhaps it was instinct. Perhaps it was something that had always been there and never had a chance to emerge. Ethan pulled him along the narrow corridor behind the control room, guiding him through passages unknown even to veteran employees. The attack was happening in multiple locations simultaneously. Distant screams echoed, alarms blared, doors slammed shut. "You said they wouldn't be able to get in," Liam gasped as he ran. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. "I said they couldn't, not that they wouldn't try." A new explosion shook the walls, pushing dust beneath the concrete. The millionaire quickened his pace. "We're going to get to the containment room. He has no control there. Not even Alexander could." Liam didn't answer. Something in his stomach told him that Alexander not only would succeed, but was already trying. The containment room was hidden behind an abandoned laboratory. Ethan removed a false panel from the wall and pressed a sequence of buttons that no employee would ever suspect existed. The door opened with a hiss. It was a smaller space than Liam had imagined. It looked more like a bomb shelter than something high-tech. There was a table, some chairs, supplies, and an analog emergency panel. Nothing electronic. "Why is everything here so old?" Liam asked, looking around. "Precisely because none of this can be hacked," Ethan explained. "My father built this when he realized who Alexander was becoming." That phrase stuck in Liam's mind. Ethan closed the door. It sealed itself with a metallic bang. "We are safe here," he said, taking a deep breath. "For how long?" Ethan hesitated, enough to come up with a plan. Liam approached the table. His hands trembled, but he squeezed them to stop them. He didn't want to be dragged along by events anymore. He didn't want to continue being just the lost boy of the story. "Ethan," he said, "what am I? Why did Alexander say I was the key?" Ethan ran a hand over his face, as if he didn't know where to begin. Alexander always believed the Ward lineage should continue under his vision. He wanted someone to mold, someone to transform into the perfect successor. When he found out you were going to be born, he tried to steal you away to raise you as the heir he wanted. "And you?" Liam asked with a hint of bitterness. "What did you want?" The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Ethan replied, "I wanted to deny that you were mine, because accepting it would mean accepting that Alexander was right about me. He said I didn't have the courage to face the consequences of my own choices, and when I found out about you, I proved him right." Liam stared at his father. "I'm not going to lie," the boy said. "I was angry with you, very angry." Ethan lowered his head, as if he had been expecting it. "But now," Liam continued, "I understand that you're not the only one who made a mistake." And it was there, in that cramped shelter, surrounded by chaos, that something inside Liam changed. He took a deep breath, shrugged, and said, "Tell me what I need to do to help." Ethan looked up. "I wasn't expecting that. I don't want to stay hidden," Liam said firmly. "I don't want to spend the rest of the day running. I want to face this." The millionaire took a deep breath, as if that attitude were a shock, but also a growing source of pride. "All right," he said. "Then you're going to learn now what it means to be a Ward." Ethan opened one of the metal cabinets and took out a rectangular case. Inside, there was a detailed map of the company's underground structure with hand-marked sections. Alexander has never been inside, but he has studied every inch of this building. He will try to force his way into the main exit or the maintenance elevator. If we block those routes, we can buy time. "Why buy time?" Liam asked. "To attract the media here, to expose him, so that the world can see that he attacked his own family. Liam analyzed the map. So, are we going there? It's risky, but yes, I'll go. You stay here. Liam shook his head immediately. I'll go too. Liam, you said I was the key, he interrupted. Then use me as the key. Let me be a part of it. Ethan stood still for several long seconds. Then he handed the map to the boy. Very well. Then that's how we're going to do it. They exited the containment room through an off-road corridor that led to a maintenance staircase. The bunker still shook, but now there was more noise, the distant sound of footsteps, voices and metal being cut. Liam kept his breathing under control. I was scared, very. But for the first time, he wasn't letting fear decide for him. Ethan guided him with precision. The attack had already damaged a good part of the internal system, but the manual corridors were still functioning. We're close, said the millionaire, looking at the map. The power room is right above the stairs. If we cut off access from there, Alexander will be trapped in that area. They were almost at the door when they heard click. The sound chilled them both to the bone. At the end of the corridor, a silhouette appeared. Someone was already waiting for them, and judging by the metallic glint in his hands, he didn't seem interested in negotiating. Liam breathed a sigh of relief, and he took a step forward. I'll take care of it, he said. Ethan's eyes widened. Liam, no, I need to try. And in that second, the boy ceased to be merely a victim of the story. He became an active part of it. The figure at the end of the corridor advanced slowly, like a predator sure of its prey. The emergency light flashed on the metal he carried. It wasn't a firearm, but a high-impact electric baton used by advanced containment teams. The uniform was black, without identification, one of Alexander's men. Ethan instinctively pulled Liam back, but the boy dodged him. Liam, don't be reckless, Ethan whispered. He's not here for you, Liam replied. He came for me. That statement wasn't pure courage. It was perception. From the beginning, Alexander had spoken to him directly. He wanted to provoke a specific personal fear in him, and Liam realized now, if he wanted to win, he needed to show that Alexander didn't control him. The man quickened his pace. Ethan raised his arms, placing himself in front of the boy, but Liam slid to the side and took a single step forward to confront the intruder. The man raised the stick, and Liam ran to the right wall, crouched down, and pulled a fire extinguisher that was attached to its bracket. He held it up with both hands. He didn't know how to fight. He certainly didn't know how to disarm a professional, but he knew how to improvise. When the attacker lunged forward, the boy pulled the trigger of the fire extinguisher directly into his face. A dense, white cloud covered the corridor. The man recoiled, coughing, blinded for a few seconds. Liam didn't wait for instructions. He grabbed Ethan by the arm. Now, run! Ethan, surprised, obeyed. The two dashed down the hallway, while the man tried to regain his balance behind them. Liam could barely feel his legs. He could only hear his heart pounding, as if it were about to explode. They reached the door to the power room. Ethan quickly closed it and locked it manually. That won't hold him for long, Ethan warned. But it holds up long enough, doesn't it? Liam replied. Ethan looked at the boy, and for the first time saw not fragility, but genuine initiative. It will hold him long enough, he confirmed. The power room was a labyrinth of thick cables, mechanical panels, and old valves. Almost everything was manual, like the containment room, designed to operate in isolation from the central system. It was one of the few places where Alexander didn't have digital control. Ethan walked straight to a metal box attached to the wall. Here, he said, opening the hatch. If we shut down these lines, Alexander will lose access to the maintenance elevator and the east corridor. He'll be stuck in the north sector for at least 10 minutes. What do you need 10 minutes for? Liam asked. We can turn the tables, Ethan replied, and expose him. While Ethan worked on the valves, Liam watched the thick cables pulsing with energy. The place smelled of metal, oil, and burnt dust. The sound of the outside alarms was muffled but constant. The entire facility vibrated with the effort of keeping itself running under attack. Liam swallowed hard. "Ethan, he'll take me if he gets the chance, won't he?" The millionaire paused for a second, his hand resting on the main valve. "He wants to use you to destroy everything we've built," he replied seriously, "but I won't let him." Liam took a deep breath. "Then I'm not going either." "You're already helping more than you realize," Ethan said, finishing locking the valve. At that same instant, the sound from the system changed. The constant hum turned into a crackling sound, followed by partial silence. The analog monitors flickered, and part of the floor vibrated as it shut down. "There you go," Ethan said. "He's being held up north." Boom! The door to the power room shook. Liam and Ethan froze. Boom! Boom! Someone was banging on the door with something heavy, something that cut but didn't strike. "He found us too quickly," Ethan murmured, taking a step back. Liam realized, "It's not that man from the hallway." Ethan nodded. "No, that's Alexander." The door trembled a fourth time, this time bending the metal. "Ethan," Liam whispered, "what's the plan now?" Ethan took a deep breath, forcing his mind to work. He looked around the room, searching for alternatives. His eyes landed on a metal ladder that led to the upper ventilation duct. Below! Liam didn't even question it. The two ran to the stairs, while a sound of scraping metal filled the room. Liam climbed up first, bracing himself tightly on the narrow steps. Ethan followed close behind. The boy opened the duct grate and crawled down into the narrow tunnel on his knees. "Go on, Liam," Ethan whispered. "Keep going." When the boy had moved forward a few meters, he heard crack. The door finally gave way. "Ethan," Liam whispered, looking back. But the millionaire continued climbing, without taking his eyes off the pipeline. "Don't look back, Liam," he shouted. The boy swallowed his fear and strode back through the narrow tunnel. The metal vibrated beneath his knees. Breaths echoed inside the duct. Behind him, a calm, icy voice echoed through the broken-down room. "Well, well, I finally managed to find you, boy. Era Alexander." And now, nothing separated the enemy from its prey, except a few meters of tunnel, a determined father, and the beginning of a war whose climax was about to be revealed. The metal duct seemed to narrow around Liam as he crawled, listening to his breath echo in the cramped space. Every vibration in the tunnel made his muscles tense. Behind him, Ethan followed with quick yet too silent movements, the kind of silence only someone genuinely afraid can produce. And then came the voice. "Liam, you don't need to run away." Alexander. His presence filled the broken-down room like poison spreading through the air. "Come with me," the man continued, walking slowly, as if savoring every second. "You were born for something greater than this. You were born to be by my side, not by his." Ethan, still climbing, murmured urgently, "Don't listen to him. Keep moving forward." Liam swallowed hard and continued crawling. The duct bent to the right, then to the left, leading to the upper ventilation section. One of the few accesses that Alexander hadn't completely mastered. But the boy knew there wasn't a tunnel secure enough to protect him from that man. Behind him, Alexander's voice sounded closer. Very close. "Ethan, you never understood," Alexander said. "He doesn't need you. He needs the truth." Ethan paused for a second. Just a second. But it was enough for Alexander's shadow to appear in the duct entrance, illuminated by the red glow of the emergency lights. Liam looked back and saw something he would never forget. Alexander, finally visible. The angular face, the short beard, the cold gaze that seemed to pierce through metal, the ward ring on his finger gleaming like a distorted symbol of power. "Hello, boy," said Alexander, nodding his head. "I told you I'd come to get you." Ethan positioned himself between himself and Liam, blocking the entrance to the duct with his own body. "You're not going to touch him," Ethan growled. Alexander smiled, a small, cruel smile. Always so heroic at the wrong time. He picked up a compact device and pressed a button. An electric discharge swept through the metal of the duct, making Liam feel a wave of warmth rise up his hands. Ethan shuddered, almost losing his balance. "Go, Liam!" he shouted. "Go!" Liam pressed on, even with his heart racing, even with his throat tightening. The duct led to the main ventilation shaft, which opened onto a narrow corridor used by technical teams. If he got there, he could run to the outer tower and maybe get help. But before he reached the next bend, he heard a fight behind him, the sound of bodies colliding, the hoarse sound of Ethan trying to push Alexander away, and the metallic sound of something heavy hitting the wall. "Stop!" Liam shouted, unable to stop himself, but the duct was too narrow, and turning back would mean being captured. And then it happened. A loud bang, a muffled scream, and the silence, a silence that pierced Liam's chest like a blade. "Ethan!" whispered the boy, trembling. No response. Only slow footsteps approached the duct, as if Alexander were walking over the wreckage of the battle. "He was strong," Alexander's voice said, too calmly, "but not strong enough to protect you from me." "None of them are." Liam froze. For a second his body refused to move forward. "Come on, Liam!" Alexander called, now softer, almost paternal. "The time has come for you to understand who you really are, to assume the place you were born to occupy." That sentence, it was just like the one he'd heard as a child, when his mother spoke about the man who had tried to take him from the hospital. The tone, the conviction, everything matched, and then something clicked inside him. It wasn't just fear. It was revulsion, it was determination, it was the realization that running away would only give Alexander exactly what he wanted: control. Liam took a deep breath, and for the first time, she turned around inside the duct to face the man. "I am not your key," he said firmly. Alexander seemed pleased. "Of course it is. You are the key to dethroning your father and restoring the Ward family to the way it should be, with me in charge, with you as my heir, with the world understanding that the Ward bloodline only thrives when it follows in my footsteps." Liam felt panic threatening to return, but he held tightly to the metal of the duct. "If you believe that, then why did you steal from me when I was just a baby?" the boy asked. "Why did you think I needed you from the start?" Alexander hadn't expected that question. Her smile faltered, and Liam noticed the crack. "You didn't want an heir," he continued, his voice beginning to falter, but firm. "You wanted a puppet. You wanted someone who would obey you because they didn't know any other life, because they thought you were everything." Alexander narrowed his eyes. "You know nothing about me." "I know enough," Liam replied. "I know you're afraid. Afraid to face Ethan without me. Afraid to prove that it was you my grandfather rejected, not him." The air became thick. The words echoed like a gunshot. Alexander took a step forward, furious. "It's getting cold." "No." Liam raised his chin. "You don't want an heir. You want revenge. You want to destroy my father using me as a weapon. But I won't let you. I choose my side." Alexander raised the electrical device, aiming it at the boy. "You chose wrong." And at the exact moment he pressed the button, a hand grabbed his wrist from behind, a familiar hand, Ethan, vivo, bloody, filled with pain. "But I'm alive." "You're the one who made the wrong choice, Alex," growled the millionaire, pulling his brother back. The device fell to the ground. Liam took advantage of the opening and kicked the device down the duct, sending it plummeting several meters below. Alexander tried to turn around, but Ethan pushed him with all his might against the wall of the power room. The impact echoed throughout the entire duct. Liam crawled backward, terrified and amazed at the same time. "Run, Liam!" Ethan shouted. "Now!" It was the last chance. With tears burning his eyes, Liam turned and darted down the duct, crawling with all his might, while the sounds of the final fight between the brothers echoed behind him. Punches, screams, scraping metal, the weight of two lives colliding in a reckoning that had taken years to happen. And there, in that narrow tunnel, Liam understood one thing: to survive, to save his father, to save himself. He would have to face the ultimate truth that awaited him outside. And the next step would be the step that would change everything, forever. The cold night air hit Liam's face as he emerged from the duct onto the roof of the technical wing. The city below seemed endless, a sea of flickering lights. He ran to the parapet, breathing rapidly, trying to figure out what to do now. The outer tower was 20 meters away, connected by a narrow maintenance walkway. 20 meters separate him from a chance to seek help. Behind him, muffled explosions echoed through the metal structures, signs of the fight between Ethan and Alexander spreading through the underground facility. Liam felt his heart clench. He wanted to go back. He wanted to help. He wanted to have the strength to face Alexander head-on. But I knew I couldn't. What Ethan needed was to survive. He took a deep breath and ran down the walkway. The wind rattled the cables and made the structure creak, but the boy didn't slow down. When he reached the outer tower, he banged forcefully on the metal door. "Help!" he shouted. "Someone! Please! Help!" The inner lock turned. The door opened, revealing 2 security guards, both startled by the building's vibrations. "My name is Liam Ward," he said, breathless. "My father is in prison. My uncle is trying," he swallowed hard, "to kill him." The agents didn't hesitate. They pulled the boy inside, activated the emergency protocol, and called for federal reinforcements. Within minutes, the entire tower was on alert. But for Liam, time seemed to be turning backward. He could only think about Ethan. Minutes later, minutes that felt like hours, armed teams stormed the underground structure, descending through the concrete corridors. Liam waited in the lobby, his body trembling, clutching his hands. Then he heard footsteps. "Liam!" He raised his head, and there was Ethan, bloodied, staggering, but alive. The boy ran to him without thinking, and Ethan greeted him with a tight hug, even groaning in pain as he felt him squeeze his bruised ribs. "I told you I would never leave you alone," Ethan murmured, his voice hoarse. Liam cried on his chest. "I thought you were dead." "Not yet," Ethan replied with a weak smile. "I still have a lot to fix." Behind them, agents escorted Alexander in handcuffs. The man maintained an upright posture, but there was a deep mark on the wall from everything that had happened that night, and in his eyes, for the first time, genuine fear. He looked at Liam, and for the first time, there was no arrogance, only defeat. Liam turned his face away. I owed that man nothing. In the following days, the story spread. Investigations were opened. The media exploded with headlines. But none of that mattered to Liam as much as the simple fact that, for the first time, he could wake up in peace. In the garden of the Ward house, as the sun rose, Ethan pulled up a chair and sat down beside him. "Do you know what you did down there?" Ethan said, looking at the horizon. "You confronted a man I've spent my whole life running from. You chose who you wanted to be, not because of my name or the Ward blood or anything like that." Liam looked at him. "I only chose you," Ethan smiled. "And I choose you too, today and always." Liam took a deep breath. Finally, free. Finally, whole. The truth hurt him. The truth almost destroyed him, but the truth also saved him. And so, between the soft morning light and the weight of what they had survived together, father and son understood that their lives were only just beginning. And this time,